People that have had their Range Rover nicked to the point where now insurers are refusing to insure them.
What is the most exciting supercar?
Bugatti Veyron, it's like you're on a roller coaster. Hypercars, that's when you can make some serious money.
How much total stock in 30 years of cars you've sold?
Over a bill. I've got one client in particular, he probably buys a car every 2 weeks.
Every two weeks?
Literally every 2 weeks. He literally calls me more than my wife. But
So what's the most underrated car out there?
my previous car, I think, is massively underrated and undervalued. So many cars that sell before we advertise them. For me, it's about creating desire. There's definitely stuff that we're like, oh my God, it's horrible, and it sells like that.
Yeah. Do you have any celebrity clients?
Likes of Rod Stewart, Simon Cowell, and the One Direction boys.
What's the biggest loss you've taken?
Probably 100.
Have you ever had any cars nicked from your showroom? Tom, what's the best supercar to own?
The best supercar to own? It depends on many factors. If you're talking just about driving experience, then you know you'd do far wrong to get anything other than a Ferrari. You know, hypercars, you can go Pagani, Zonda. You know, that's just driving and ownership, because you look at investment as well. You know, you look at if you bought a Zonda 10 years ago and paid a couple of mil, it's now worth, you know, probably 8 or 9 mil potentially. Wow. So it depends what you want from ownership. Are you looking at financials? Are you looking at the driving? Are you looking at the relationship with the car, the reliability, you know, are you going to have issues? You know, because you look at McLaren, one of the best brands in terms of the driving and the performance, but we know if you're buying a McLaren, you should expect a few little niggles, a few little issues. So,
well,
depends what, yeah.
I've got the McLaren question, because I nearly bought one. And my business partner was like, do not buy a McLaren. So we'll come to that. But okay, so what about an everyday supercar? Is there anything that ticks all the boxes?
There's definitely cars that tick all the boxes. I mean, the ultimate everyday supercar, a lot of people would say there's the Turbo S, 992 Turbo S. That, for me, lacks a little bit of soul, although the new one is very, very good. But it's definitely something you can take anywhere, everywhere. It's a little bit understated. Unbelievable performance, holds its money very well, and is generally pretty reliable. For me, I'd probably go GT3 Touring as the ultimate everyday supercar.
What's the difference in that and a Turbo S?
So it's a GT car. It's set up a little bit more aggressively. You know, it's a little bit more track focused, but it's got no wing compared to the normal GT3, so it's understated. So if you know, you know, and you get, you know, the enthusiasts will know that's a GT3 Touring, but to the regular eye, it just looks like a normal Porsche. So you can take it everywhere, but it's just got a bit more driver focus about it than a Turbo S.
Yeah. And what is the most exciting supercar you've ever seen or driven?
The most exciting...
Thrill,
I mean...
Erection.
I mean, these behind me, I mean, I remember as a kid first getting in a Bugatti Veyron with my dad, and that still to this day is probably the most thrilling, most excited I've ever been. When you go in one of these, as a kid especially, it's like you're on a roller coaster. As you put your foot down, they're that fast. It's still unlike, the experience of being in one of those is still unlike anything else.
Yeah.
But it's also very smooth and comfortable. So, you know, there's other stuff that you can get more scared by, because these are four-wheel drive, they're pretty solid on the road. You can get in something like a P1, a McLaren P1, they're a lot hairier, you're right on a knife edge, yeah. So, you know, that's thrilling in its own way, but yeah, a little bit scary. I'd prefer to be on one of these, I think.
Yeah. What about the F40? I mean, that's my all-time favourite car, like classic car. I guess they're quite...
Yeah, do you know what? It's been a while since I've been in one. You know, they are the poster car. They are so many people's all-time favourite car. But yeah, haven't driven one in a long time. Again, I've been in one when I was a kid. We don't sell a lot of F40s. It's just probably slightly too old for what we normally sell.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, the iconic car is the F40.
Yeah. What's the worst supercar you've ever had in the showroom or had the disgrace of owning or driving?
The worst ones for us are ones that have issues that are almost unfixable. So we've had some cars, McLarens normally, that have a few issues, and they're in McLaren waiting for parts, waiting for something to be sorted, which can be, just had a car in McLaren for 8 months.
Wow.
And it's only just been sorted. So those for us are like, it's dead money.
Yeah.
It's stock we can't sell. So in that respect, they're the worst. I mean, it's not just McLaren. We've had some other cars, Ferraris as well, as the occasional problem. But most of the stuff is there's not anything that sort of highlights to me as a really bad supercar. The guys before I started working here, they tell a story of we had a Koenigsegg, one of the very, very early ones, which apparently was a nightmare. Had a lot of problems. I think it broke down a few times. I know that the brand has gone way better now, and I'm sure they're more reliable. But that's a car that a lot of people that were here before me always say, oh, don't go near a Koenigsegg. But I think that's old news now.
Right. I guess when you don't make that many cars, if you're Volkswagen Audi group, you can put all the money into the research, the testing and all of that. I don't know how many cars Koenigsegg made back then, but
it probably was
50
one of
a
the,
year.
yeah, if that. So it was probably one of their first cars. So it's and any growing pains of building a brand, especially a car manufacturer, it's acceptable. I think.
Have you met Christian?
No, I haven't.
I would love to. We've been on a Christian von Koenigsegg for 5 years. Christian, if you're watching, or if anyone knows Christian, this is one of the biggest shows in the world. You need to be on this show. To me, he's the Elon Musk of cars. What do you think?
He's definitely building that legendary status, and the brand is getting stronger and stronger. And he seems just like a cool dude. Looks like a cool dude.
What is the worst depreciating sports car you've ever had? Or generally in the brand?
Worth depreciating, I guess if you look at list price, the depreciation can be huge on certain cars, but a lot of people don't pay list price.
Yeah.
Aston Martin are notoriously bad for depreciation, but if you're buying a new Aston, or you could at least used to, get a massive discount, so that softens the blow. McLaren were the same. You could get 50 grand off a 720S quite easily, but if you paid the list price, you're going to shoot, 100 grand quite easily.
Yeah.
I mean, SF90s, one in front of us, some of them were 500, 550 grand new, and quite quickly they got down to 400. So that, for an owner, over 100 grand depreciation in less than a year was pretty bad.
Yeah.
There's quite a few. There's most of these cars do depreciate, unfortunately. But yeah, it's about buying it right and getting the right deal to begin with, and that will just help with the depreciation.
Yeah, well, I just bought, it's about 2 weeks away from being delivered, the newer model DBS. Not that limited edition one, is it? Did you say it's the Evolution?
The Ultimate. That's just come out, DBS
that's
Ultimate.
It. But yeah, that was the list of that spec was 303, and I paid one in the 140s, I think it was.
Yeah.
Terrible colour, which helped.
Oh, really? Yeah, depreciation on the strange colours can be worse.
Well,
what
now
colour
you
is
can wrap
it?
them. Well, it's like highlighter yellow, but maybe with a bit of green mixed in.
Yeah,
but I just sent it down to Yanni, and for 3 grand he'll wrap it.
That's the thing. And strangely, we actually find these days the more unique, the better, and the more weird, the better sometimes.
Oh, really?
A lot of people like wacky stuff.
Well, that Bugatti is a unique,
that's
weird,
pretty out there.
It's like a stick of rock, isn't it?
Yeah. So, personalization, customization, especially if it's done at factory, can be a good thing. And, something I've learned here is it's not all about what we like as people, because what we like is, what's one man's trash is another man's treasure. We're not selling to us. Although normally it bodes us pretty well in buying stuff we like, but there's definitely stuff that we're like, oh my God, it's horrible, and it sells like that.
Yeah. So if you're not watching, you're listening. We're sat in Romans International, and Tom, who's the co-owner, we've got 3 Bugattis behind us. So you'd assume these would be a great investment, wouldn't you? I mean, what do you say, they make 50 a year?
If that, I mean, the Veyrons are, they stopped making them, how long ago? Probably 10 years ago, or maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So they don't make them anymore at all.
So yeah, are Bugattis a good investment for anyone who can afford one?
Well, so far, they haven't proven to be the best investment. As I said, one of this Tiffany Grand Sport Vitesse we sold about 5 years ago, and we've just sold it again, and there's very little difference in the value.
And what's a normal price of something like that at a Veyron?
So the Vitesse that's a special edition, which was a convertible and based on the Supersport, which is the higher level. A regular Veyron, this one that's just come in literally yesterday, that's going to be about 900 to 950. You know, and again, they cost over $1 million new, so it's actually proven to be not a great investment.
Yeah.
But I think long term, you know, these cars are so iconic. They've changed the game completely. They will eventually, and everything else around it has gone through the roof. You look at F40s, look at Carrera GTs, you know, F50s gone mad, and these have sort of stayed the same. So we'd like to think that they will eventually catch up, and the longer sort of history goes on, I think the more special and important they'll become.
Yeah, what's the most nickable car?
I mean, definitely a Range Rover. I mean, they are, you know, we get, not only my wife's car's been stolen twice, Range Rover Sport, but we found it both times because it had a tracker. But, you know, we're forever talking to people that have had their Range Rover nicked. London is particularly bad for it, to the point where now insurers are refusing to insure them. You've got to have at least a ghost immobiliser or you know, something that basically makes it harder to nick. But even then, you know, these hackers, they're always ahead of the game. But yeah, Range Rovers just seem to be the most nickable. And you kind of look at Land Rover and think, surely you can come up with something. You know, Porsches don't really get nicked. You know, McLarens so far don't seem to get nicked. Ferraris are getting worse. Like recently, they've seemed to work out how to nick Ferraris. But yeah, other than that, Range Rovers are definitely the worst. And I think it's because there's so many of them, they blend in. So a black Range Rover Sport is the most nicked car in the country.
My MD just found that out. She has a black Range Rover Sport, and she's like, I don't want one.
Yeah, wrap it yellow.
Yeah. So back to the McLaren and the Bugatti Veyron. Do you think the reasons they either drop a lot, and the Astons, or don't go up as much as you would think, is the running and maintenance cost something to do with that?
Definitely with Bugatti, you know, these cost a lot of money to service.
How much?
You're talking at least 20 grand, sometimes more.
20 grand plus just for an oil change?
Just for an annual service. You know, but we've had services that cost a lot more than that. And then the tyres, you're meant to change.
What's the highest service you've ever seen on a Bugatti?
I mean, we've probably had, well, if you include putting a warranty and a service pack on it, you're talking about, can be over 100 grand.
For a yearly service?
Yeah, we've had, because if you've got to change the tyres and the wheels.
And how much are the tyres to change?
Tyres are at least $5 grand a tyre.
And you can't get like eBay cheaper ones.
And each 3 tyre changes, you have to change the wheels.
And how much are the wheels?
And the wheels, I think, are 20 grand each, something like that.
So it's the price of a regular car per wheel.
Yeah, it might be a bit less than that. It's been a while since we've actually gone through the rigour of having to do that. But it's, I think, at least 10 grand a wheel. So it's and that puts investors off.
Yeah. Is it mostly investors who buy Bugatti?
I think it is now. When it first came out, it was obviously anyone that wanted the latest, the most special thing. Now Veyrons have sort of moved into that sort of classic car status, so it is more investors, as much as they're pretty usable to drive. But now it's the Chiron that's the people that want the latest special Bugatti. But these are now crossed over to be more of a classic investment car, and I think people are seeing them as massively undervalued now.
Yeah.
And you don't have to service them every year if you're going to put it away. You know, every 2 years is probably fine. Bugatti have just brought something out where you have a collector's package for servicing and a user's package for servicing, and the collector's package is a lot less because obviously less worried about you using it and something going wrong. So you know, Bugatti is starting to realise there's ways of, you know, more people buying them.
So with things like high inflation, lockdown, have you seen people start to buy cars more for investment than just for general use?
Yeah, there's been, it's happening again now. There sort of goes through these periods of, when other things aren't so good, you look at the stock market, crypto, things that maybe aren't performing as well, people start to look at different assets. And I feel like it's happening more and more. And as people see the potential, you've seen cars go crazy in value over the last 2 years since lockdown, especially.
Like?
You look at the Ferrari market, the Halo cars, the F40, the F50, the LaFerrari, they've gone up £1 million in the space of, a year and a half. Sometimes they move 500 grand within, a few months. So people are starting to think, right, and especially with the narrative of electric cars is coming in, combustion engines are being banned, all this kind of stuff is helping. People see these cars as proper collector's items. So, yeah, and now at the moment, especially I think in a recession, pending recession, these cars are starting to become their own asset class. So people of wealth are thinking, right, I want a property portfolio, I want a stock portfolio, I want maybe a bit of crypto. And they're now thinking, I also want a car portfolio. And it's generally the higher end stuff that's going to have, the most potential to increase in value. But, a lot of our clients now, we sold the TDF last week, which...
Is that the A12, is it?
F12 TDF.
F12, sorry, yeah.
It was only done 100 miles.
Wow.
And the guy that owned it before, I think he paid 600 or something for it. We just sold it for close to $1 million. He's never driven it. He'd never actually seen the car.
So he's just bought it as an investment?
Yeah, purely as an investment. A very shrewd investment it turned out to be. And the next guy is probably going to do exactly the same. He's just bought it. He doesn't want it on the road. He'll have it in his garage. He can sit in it. He can look at it.
Put it in those big bubble wrap vacuum pack things.
Yeah, but it's a smart play, I think. But you've got to choose the right car. Ferrari's gonna be the best, I think. But Porsche is not far behind. Lamborghini, potentially, there's some out there that I think could be good investments now that the V12 is, no longer in terms of pure combustion.
What's the total value of the stock in this showroom? Do you know? Do you have to guess?
We did this exercise about a couple of months ago, and it turned out it was 30 million.
Wow. 30 million quid's worth of cars in one showroom.
We've got 3 Bugattis here, and we've actually got another one out the back. That in itself is 7 or 8 million.
Right.
And then, we've actually got over 100 cars in stock at the moment, and the average value is probably 150, 200 grand. So, if you do the math, it's quite quickly adds up.
How much is your insurance you have to pay every year on that?
Hell of a lot. Hell of a lot, but no claims.
No, it doesn't count. Yeah, go on, tell us, how much?
I think it's at least 15 grand a month, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any cars nicked from your showroom?
Never had a car nicked. Had a motorbike nicked, so we no longer keep motorbikes in the showroom. But never. This place is like Fort Knox with cameras and posts, and it's very hard to nick a car from here. But a motorbike, someone did smash through the front window and just you can wheel it out. So we now keep those somewhere else.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So the car investment market, do you think it's a major bubble because of lockdown, high inflation? Because isn't it normally the case? You buy a car and you expect it to go down in value, and it would seem like everyday cars, Porsche Taycans, 911s, were major premiums on them.
I think the bubble has burst in terms of those cars, the normal cars, which are never normally selling for premiums. Turbo S's, you look last year, they were 40, 50 grand over lists, which is just unheard of. And lockdown and Brexit, it did create the bubble for those cars.
Because of the lack of supply of them.
Lack of supply, semiconductor issues, you couldn't order one, the waiting lists were huge. That bubble does feel like it's burst, not dramatically, but it's going down that way. But it's going back to normal. It's not like it's, if you bought one at list, you'll still be fine. You'll still be doing very well, in fact. But the collector's market is different. That's got its own beat. That's only, I don't think that's a bubble at all. There's a chance that, you know, they've peaked and they might correct and go back up again. But, you know, history will tell us things like the Halo Ferraris, they only go one way.
By Halo,
overall.
you mean their
So that's their top level,
Yeah.
the F40, the F50, 288 GTO,
right.
the Enzo,
Their-
and La Ferrari.
their Hypercar each
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ferrari are very clever at building a customer base for those cars, and you know, it's clever investors and obviously very wealthy people that are going
As
to buy
in, they
those.
make you get in a queue and earn your way up and buy 4 Ferraris on the journey up.
Yeah, so that's it. You know, you're going to lose 50 grand on one car, maybe more on another car,
Yeah.
but if you get, you know,
Once you get there.
once you get there, you're laughing.
So is there an argument then, if you want to get into this game eventually, stick to a brand? Because the watch market's the same. I love watches. And, you know, some of the APs, the Pateks, the Richard Milles, they've gone wild. And you want to go in and buy a Rolex Daytona or, you know, a nice Halo Patek, as you call it. And there can be a 3 to 9 year waiting list on that. But you're always first if you've bought 5 or 10 watches on it.
Yeah, it works in a similar way.
Yeah.
You've got to play the game. A lot of people don't like playing it. They don't like being told what they can do with their cars. You know, we have people looking to sell the new 812 Competizione, is one of the limited edition.
Isn't that the one that's
V12s.
nearly $1 million now or
That's
something?
over $1 million now.
That's
And
crazy.
Yeah, I think they're like 1.3, 1.4. Cost new 500 or 600 grand, and you know that car's only just come out. But we've had 3 or 4 people agree to sell them to us for over £1 million, so they're making good money. They're very happy with the price, and they basically in their contract they have to let
Ferrari won't let them.
Basically, they have to give it to Ferrari to say we're allowed to try and sell the car for 6 weeks or something, or 4 weeks. And if we sell it, they get the money. If they don't sell it, they're not doing their job well, for one. But then they're allowed to sell them to us. But all 4, they've gone to Ferrari and they've sold them. So it's frustrating for us, but you know they're ring fencing their brand.
Yeah, because if you go and buy, you get given these nice watches and cars, and you just quickly you flip them. They turn their nose up at that, don't they?
They can
Some
do.
brands.
Some brands do. You know, they don't always find out, obviously. But you know, Range Rover actually are one of the worst, but they can't stop it. There's so many Range Rovers, but they've been selling for big premiums over the last year. But they threaten people. The brand threatens the dealer who have sold the car initially with fines, and but they can't stop it. When you own that car, you can do what you want with it.
Yeah.
Ferrari, obviously, some people don't care. They're just like, I don't care. I'll do what. And especially when we're offering more money, they're like, well, why am I going to take 30 grand less, from Ferrari when I can sell it to you for 30 grand more?
Yeah.
They'll take it, and most of the time you can rebuild a relationship pretty quickly with another dealer.
Or when the market changes and there's a recession and they're begging for business again.
That's the thing.
Oh, come back. Yeah. See, if I was doing this again, because I've been a watch collector and we've got 7 or 8 cars now, so I've been building that up. If I was being more strategic and going back to the start, I probably would do a bit more research up front, and I probably would pick one brand, and I probably would stick to them. Whether it's, say, Ferrari or Audemars Piguet, because I know by now I'd be getting all the best models.
Yeah.
Like there's a blue Audemars Piguet Royal Oak ceramic and 150 new, and they immediately go for 350.
Really? Yeah.
Immediately. And I've had chances to buy these watches years ago at 60, 65 grand. When you get invited to go and see them in their factory and everything else. So, yeah, that's probably something I would do different.
Is watches the same as cars, that there's no capital gains tax?
Yeah.
Yeah, see.
Yeah. Well,
many things
at the
left.
moment,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much left the government
There's
have
not
got
much left,
to tax
no.
you on. But no, I mean, they're obviously, I guess you can't really class them as an asset, can you? They're supposed to be a depreciable.
Yeah. Well, that's it, I think.
But of
with
course,
cars.
once they class, I think the good thing about watches and cars that stops them from taxing them is most of them go down.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
They can't start hand-picking.
No. It's only a very select few watches that go up in value, and I'm sure it's the same with cars.
It's the same, yeah. But when you deal in just those cars or just those watches, it feels like we're at risk of being taxed in some way.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're doing that, you're running a business, aren't you? And you get your standard
true.
business tax. But no, at the moment, as long as you're not a trading business, you're just a private collector, no. So if you've got 30 million of stock, how long has this business been going?
So the business was started by my dad in 1994. I mean, he'd been in the industry for a long time before that, but Romans
30 years.
International was started in 94.
So have a stab at guessing how much total stock in 30 years of cars you've sold.
That is...
Do you want us to come back next week?
Yeah, that's going to take some real database analysis.
More than 100 mil?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100 mil we'd do in a year, easily. You know, it's got to be, I don't know, it's got to be over a bill. I have no idea. I mean, our turnover's 100 mil a year, so, you know, it wasn't always that, but, you know, it's got to be approaching a bill, I'd say.
Wow.
It's a lot.
How does that feel?
Well, I don't know, it's lottery numbers, isn't it? I guess you get a bit blasé with the numbers when you deal in these kind of cars, but, you know, for us, it's just a product. It's a great product, don't get me wrong, but, you know, the numbers, you kind of just get, they just seem normal to me.
Yeah. Well, anyone who's been in business long enough knows. I remember speaking to Aston Marigold of JLS, and I said to him, you know, what's the biggest lesson you've had in the industry? And he said, 1 million in a million. Because you get 1 million, and then there's tax, national insurance, your manager, your agent, blah, 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 your wife. And so 1 billion isn't 1 billion, is it?
No.
Wouldn't it be nice if it was?
Yeah, it would be lovely. You could just close the doors tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a bit of top tips on maybe what you think might appreciate. So I was speaking to Carl a few weeks ago, and the Tesla Rossas sort of started to go up. But the model before it, the 355, that's even more recently gone up, the 355. And I think the model before it was the 348, and that's still quite cheap. That's like in the 70s. And so Carl was like, that's the next one to go. It's got to be, if you look at the history. So let's say someone's got a 50 grand budget. What do you think, you know, maybe the next one to go is?
I mean, Ferrari's always got the biggest potential, but you've got to find the model. You know, my knowledge of the older stuff is not great, I'd admit, because we deal mainly in the latest stuff. But, you know, the 348 was never as loved as the 355, as far as I know. Yeah. So I think the model needs to be loved a bit. I mean, for me, if I had 50 grand, I'd be probably looking more at some of like the German muscle cars, like the C63 AMGs, you know, maybe even an RS6 V10. You know, they don't make them anymore. The C63, they don't make a V8 anymore. The RS6, they don't make a V10. They haven't done for a long time. But those cars, because they are the last of something, you know, and...
So are we looking at scarcity here then, limited supply? Is that important?
It's important if you can find a special edition version, you know, like the C63 507 edition, which is much rarer.
And probably more.
Yeah, and will cost more anyway, so it's all relative. But, you know, I'd personally look at those kind of cars. Also, the maintenance costs are less, you know, so some of these older Ferraris, you know, they might go up 20 grand, but you'll spend that in maintenance
cost,
so, you know, the older German manufacturers don't cost as much to maintain. So I actually think, you know, fast forward 10 years, those cars won't cost you as much. They're super fun to drive, and, you know, they're sort of iconic, the last of them. So, you know, that would be where I'd spend my money.
I mean, have you seen the price of those old Ford Cosworths and things like that now?
Yeah,
I mean, that is mad. I remember those, and when they were like 20 grand.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, so maybe that's what will happen to some of these AMGs and stuff. But yeah, it was a bit before my time, those Ford Cosworths. But I regularly get reminded by people that are older than me that those are the ones.
Yeah. Okay, 100 grand. You got a 100 grand budget. Where are we putting that?
100 grand. I guess I look at sort of analog cars as well as, you know, the best potential investments. I look at now an R8 V10 manual. You know, don't make manuals anymore. The R8's about to be completely finished as a combustion engine car. So yeah, an R8 V10 manual, probably 70 or 80 grand. I think that has got potential long term. Maybe a 997 GT3. You know, those cars are loved. You know, they've got a proper cult following, and still quite analog, look cool.
By analog, you mean
manual,
no computers?
You know, there's so much tech in the new cars that, you know, those older cars from pre, 2010.
What do they call them? The widow makers. No traction,
yeah,
no
GT2,
ABS. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit scary those to drive. But yeah, in that sort of bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sticking to the sort of German theme,
Yeah.
it seems. But.
Yeah. Okay. And then what? $250,000. You got $250,000. Are you putting that into 2 cars, 1 car, and which ones?
I'd probably go with 1 car. I think $250,000. I'd even consider a McLaren on this one.
Right.
So McLaren 675 LT, I think that is probably the best McLaren they've built so far. It's got, again, a real cult following. They're about between 2 and 250. I think long term they could be a very good car, and Aston Martin Vantage GTA, they're a bit less than 200, but last of naturally aspirated V8s, manual, again, more of that analog theme, sound unbelievable.
Yeah.
And again, have that proper cult following, which I think is important for collectibles. If you've got a bit of a community around a particular model, GT8's got a really good, strong community where all the owners chat, all the owners know each other, they know all the different cars. Those cars, I think, have got good potential. Mercedes SLS is another one. Gullwing, not making another Gullwing, and they keep going up. So there's quite, when you get to 250,
bit of choice there.
Yeah, there's some good choice.
All right, and then money is no object. What's doing the best?
Money, no object. Then you start talking, hypercars, and that's when you can make some serious money. You look at Ferraris. The LaFerrari for me is probably the best car out at the moment. It's gone from 2 million to 3 million in the space of a year. But obviously you can go further up into the proper unicorns, the McLaren F1, the Zondas, the Porsche GT1s. Then you're over 10 million into 20 millions and things like that. But that's unlikely to happen for most people.
Yeah. What's the most expensive car you've ever sold?
Most expensive car we've sold. We've sold a lot of cars that are around 3-4 million because, again, we don't deal in older classics. You rarely get the ones that are stupid money, but LaFerrari Apertas are now 4 to 5 million. So we sell quite a few of those. We have sold McLaren F1, but back when they were about 3 million. They're obviously now 20 million plus. We're consistent with our sort of 3s and 4s and 5s, but don't tend to get involved in those older stuff that go for just tens of millions.
Yeah. And if there's one car you could just stock the whole showroom with because they just sell like a dream and they have for years, what's that?
Right now it would be the LaFerrari. We've sold 3 this year already.
Wow.
And have more clients for them. So right now if I could just stock this place with LAFs.
Laughs, that what you call it? Laughs and bugs.
Laughs and bugs. The bugs are a little bit harder to sell, to be honest. That took us almost a year to sell.
Wow.
Hopefully this one will go quick. And that one currently is an off-market car, which I think now that one's sold, that one could.
What does off-market mean in your world?
Off-market just means it's not advertised.
Right.
So
it's in the showroom.
It's in the showroom. It is for sale, but we're just not actively
Is it a famous person who owns that then?
Not especially. Not especially,
no, but someone who doesn't want any attention.
Yeah, he just, sometimes you can actually get a better sale. And it's more the people that are buying them, sometimes they like to buy them off market. They quite like knowing, in their little clan, oh, I bought that car and no one knows about it.
Right.
It's a bit more special doing it that way.
Yeah. And what's the most you've ever made on a car?
Hopefully the person that bought it is not listening.
Well, how would they know?
I think about 300 or 400 grand probably on one car.
You made 300 to 400 in one deal.
The thing is, when you buy them, when you buy them outright, because a lot of people at this level do sell a return where you have to be the middleman. But when you actually go and spend your own money,
right? So you could have held it. You could have timed it well. It could have gone up. Or
So if you hold it and wait for the perfect time or wait for the perfect customer, and a lot of time the seller doesn't have many options. If you're trying to sell a £3 million car, there's not many people with a checkbook or the brave, are brave enough to go and buy it. But we've done it multiple times, and you can go and make a lot more money that way.
Yeah.
But you've got to have the cash in the bank and be able to make that decision right there and then.
Yeah. I know quite a few watch dealers who got really hurt because they had a load of stock that they paid top money for when the bubble was at its peak, and then of course when it popped there, I left with all this stock that's dropped a lot. Has that ever happened to you?
It happens, not as dramatic as it all drops overnight. My dad will tell me in 1989, I think it was, that kind of did happen.
When rates went really high.
Yeah, I think it was that, and stuff did literally half in value overnight. I think he talks about an XJ220 that they had, and it literally halved in value overnight. But in this market, and as far as I've known, it can happen, and it's happened a little bit recently. In this new car premiums have sort of dramatically tailed off. Electric cars has kind of, the whole narrative around electric cars seems to change, and values kept dropping. And
of electric
cars. So Porsche Taycans, we had a few, and we kept reducing them, and still reducing them, trying to find buyers. They've now sort of feel like they've found their level, but it's more like a gradual kind of, But you know, there's a little bit of pain to have, but as long as you keep buying more stock, fresh stock.
Is it about turnover, keeping the volume?
You know,
right?
when you've got 100 cars, you can keep buying. The new stuff that's fresh in will make the money. Yes, you have to pick up a couple of losses here and there, but you know, when the vast majority make money, you'll be fine.
And do you have some clients that, you know, you've bought and sold the same car multiple times, or you've got clients that you've bought 10 cars for, or taken from?
Yeah, it happens all the time. We have some clients that sell us their car, and a month later they buy it back.
Oh, right.
They've regretted it.
Yeah.
You know, we had a Porsche 918 Spider. It's going back some years, but the guy sold it to us, and I think 3 months later he bought it back for quite a lot more than he sold it for. But yeah, we have a lot of people like to sell a bunch of cars. A lot of people like to sell 4 or 5 cars all in one go.
Yeah.
And that, you know, tends to work out pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, we can, you send 5 trucks, get them all arrive back at once. It's quite, you know, those deals are good.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there's people they chop and change so regularly. You know, I've got one client in particular, he probably buys a car every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks?
Literally every 2 weeks. He gets bored so quickly.
You must love him, though. Yeah.
I mean, it does my head in, 'cause he literally calls me more than my wife. But no, he's
every 2 weeks?
Pretty much every 2 weeks. He's normally got 6 or 7 cars.
He must be getting killed on depreciation.
He does all right, actually. Surprisingly, does pretty well out of it. He's pretty smart with what he buys and sells them on seller return, so he doesn't take the hits all the time.
I do know that feeling, though, when you have a certain amount of cars. Yeah, you do you just think, I don't need this. This is just sitting there.
Yeah.
What's the point?
And I think people love the process of buying something new. And they're kind of like, I've bought it now. Like, the fun bit's over.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd hope that the honeymoon period of a new car would last more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, you'd like to think so.
Yeah. Yeah, because I normally change my everyday every year. I kept the Turbo S for 5 years because it was I couldn't beat it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that I'm normally every year, but 2 weeks.
2 weeks, it's mental. Yeah. I mean, I'm a 6-month guy. I think after 6 months, I get the itch to change up to something else.
Well, you're best positioned, aren't you, to do that?
Yeah, well, I try and I quite like having my car.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, as much as I could take something home every night, it's just, you know, then you've got to connect your phone to it, and then you've got to, you know, I've got to ask the guys to clean it, and I'd rather have my own car.
Yeah. So if 300 to 400 is the most you've made on a car, what's the biggest loss you've taken?
Biggest loss, it's probably 100. I think we've lost 100 before. On maybe a couple of times. I think my dad's had bigger losses before I was here. I think that XJ220 was one he goes on about.
Still 30 years later.
Because he always reminds you, I'm back in 1989, remember? So yeah, it's good, you know, because I'm, compared to him, fairly inexperienced.
Yeah.
So it's good to have people in the business that have been, and a lot of our salespeople have been here 20 years plus as well. So it's a good mix of new, fresh blood and old, you know, old heads.
Yeah. So what's the most underrated car out there?
My previous car, I think, is massively underrated and undervalued. It was an AMG GTR.
Right.
Track focused. I used it every day, and it's for 100 grand, 110 grand. For me, I just think they should be so much more.
Yeah.
And you get you get all the looks of like, oh my God, it looks like a supercar. It drives like a supercar. It's a Mercedes, but it sounds amazing. I feel like there should be more money. They stop making them as well. And yeah, that's probably what I'd go for.
Yeah. And what about the most wildly overrated car?
Overrated.
Surely the Cullinan. I mean, that is...
The Cullinan, the thing is, when you drive the Cullinan and you're in it, you get it.
Right.
I know it doesn't look to everyone's taste.
And it's a lot of money.
And it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So in that, it shouldn't be...
So you don't think that's overrated? You think that's all right?
I get the appeal. I wouldn't have one myself. But when you're in it and the smoothness of the ride and the quality of the materials, you get why it's so much money. But yeah, it's not for me. Bentegas are not really for me. Again, a similar sort of thing. I mean, the Pura Sangue, from what I'm hearing, which is the new Ferrari SUV, that could end up being the most overrated because they're 400 grand plus.
They don't look great, do they?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen one actually in the flesh yet. And there's huge hype about them.
Yeah.
And the clients that I know that have been to see it are all pretty unimpressed, or quite a few of them are unimpressed.
Yeah.
So that at the moment feels like it's slightly overrated, but we'll see.
Yeah. Right. You are only allowed to own 3 cars for the rest of your life. You've got a daily driver, you've got your classic, and you've got your super or hypercar. What are they? What are you choosing?
So my hyper would be Zonda. The Zonda is my favourite car. We had one in the showroom on the first day I started here, and that was like I was in love. And they've just gone crazy in value, but still I love them. That would be my hyper. My everyday car, I'd probably choose a C63 AMG. I love them. They do everything. 4 seats, so get the kids in the back. Sound amazing, look pretty cool. And everything works, all the tech, the sound system's good. That for me is my perfect daily driver. And what was the other one?
The classic.
A classic. Well, my Zonda's kind of my classic, but...
Yeah, well, let's call that your hypercar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so an older classic. I'd probably have an old Porsche. I love the Bad Boys Porsche.
Yeah.
I like the old Targas. Always like the Targas, the way they look. They're kind of retro cool. But yeah, maybe not the best for investment, but yeah, if I could have a cool classic, it would probably be an old Porsche.
Yeah. Would you rather, or do you think it's easier to sell one Bugatti or 10 30 grand Fords?
One Bugatti.
But
Definitely.
Surely there's only like 10 people in the world who buy a Bugatti.
It's just the work involved. The work involved in selling one Bugatti can actually be pretty minimal and very enjoyable when you're selling a car like that.
Yeah.
Selling 10 Fords is 10 sets of photos, 10 sets of paperwork, 10 sets of customers to deal with, 10 sets of potential problems. With one Bugatti, it's one deal. And normally they're quite straightforward, the deals when you sell something like that.
Do clients ever come to you and want to pay in cash or in watches or in Bitcoin? Or in NFTs? Or
Yeah, we get all sorts of inquiries. Yeah, we get people asking, can I pay fully in cash? We can only take, I think it's 10 grand in cash legally.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where you draw the line. Crypto we get asked all the time. We don't accept crypto in the way that we don't have a Romans crypto account, but we have a company we work with who instantly turn it into cash, so we know there's no risk of...
So they paid to them and then they clear to you?
Yeah, they convert it into cash and we get paid. Yeah. So yeah, we don't take the risk of...
But they're still essentially buying a car in Bitcoin or crypto.
Much. Yeah.
And then
watches. Yeah, we get people ask, and my dad's more of the watch guy, and he knows what watches are worth. I don't really know, but he'll do some deals taking in watches against a car for sure.
Yeah.
We've taken in like random stuff as well, like horse carriages and things like that.
Horse carriage.
Yeah. But they can be worth quite a lot.
Horse for a minute.
No, not a horse.
Thoroughbred.
Not a horse. But the horse carriage things, which actually can be worth like quite a lot of money.
But you've got to know where and how to sell them, haven't you?
We
and how to value them.
That's the thing. We would always go via someone else to value it, and they'll buy it. But we can sort of effectively take it in.
Yeah. Do you have any celebrity clients? Any people that people would know mainstream?
A lot of the famous car buyers who are the likes of Rod Stewart, Simon Cowell, we've dealt with for a lot of years. A lot of footballers. There's a lot of musicians. It's the kind of people you'd expect. But yeah, look, they like to be under the radar. They don't want to sing.
But surely some of them don't like to be under the radar by the nature of their personality.
The ones that I deal with, and you know, I'm talking some of the One Direction boys, they're pretty under the radar.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they don't want to be seen buying a flash car, and to be fair, most of them are not actually buying flash cars. They actually like, and even the footballers now, you know, 10, 20 years ago, I think the footballers wanted the flashiest Lambo. Now they're very much, I want an SUV, I want a G-Wagon or a Range Rover. So that, in general, I think celebrities want to be a little bit under the radar. It's more the smaller celebrities, more the Z-listers.
The influencers.
They're the ones that want to be...
People like me.
Up and coming, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Is there one person that's alive that's not a client of yours that you'd love to have as a client?
One person that's alive.
Who would be the perfect client? You know they're just going to spend masses and...
Do you know what? He doesn't live in this country, but I'd probably say Floyd Mayweather.
Right,
As long as I don't like the guy, but if you see his car collection, it's insane. So he'd be a mega client, for sure.
Yeah, would you take Andrew Tate as a client?
I'd take him. I'd take him. He's banned from everywhere else, isn't he? But we'll take him. Yeah, for sure.
How do you sell anything to anyone?
How to sell anything to anyone? I think, obviously, everyone's got their own methods of selling. It's, you know, for me, it's about creating desire. And, you know, whatever you have, if it's a great idea, a great product, first of all, you've got to have that. But it's then how you present it and creating that desire, whether it's how you put it on your website, whether it's how you put it on your social media, how you have it physically in the showroom, whether you're presenting an idea or a product physically, that presentation of that, I think, is vital to selling it. So, yeah, it's creating that desire.
So, like, if you're presenting a car like this, how might you do this differently than if you're presenting a Ford Fiesta, for example?
Well, I think, especially when it comes to luxury products, you know, these are not things you need, these are things you want. So creating desire by perfect photos, you know, making sure the colors of the car are resonating on camera, you know, a social media post, maybe a little video, just little things to make people think, oh my God, like, I want it. And it's how you do it online. And then when you come down to the showroom, obviously it's got to look perfect. It's got to look absolutely, you know, unblemished and just looking pride of place in the showroom. You know, we try and space everything out here so that, you know, there's space to walk around it. You can really get a nice feel. And that's, you know, that's going to make them fall in love.
Is there a scarcity element to selling cars, whereby if you've sold enough cars and they sell really quick, you find it, you get better sales?
A scarcity element in...
As in, if I want that, but I know tomorrow someone else might come and buy it.
Yeah. I mean, we don't ever use that tactic unless it's actually genuine. And a lot of people think we're not being genuine when we say, look, we'll take a call on a car and we'll say, look, we've actually got 3 inquiries in this car. And people think, oh, it's just a sales technique. And then the next day it's sold. And they're like, what? Like, I can't believe, you know, oh my God. And they're like pissed off.
So it does work. Even when people know scarcity works, like you know how to sell. But I bet it still works on you in that, like, I'm the easiest person to sell to in the world.
It does work, but, you know, it's...
You just want to do it truthfully.
Yeah, I think there's...
But you must have cars that come in and then literally they're gone.
Yeah, we have. I mean, there's so many cars that sell before we advertise them.
Yeah.
So that's why we encourage people to actually inquire if they're looking for something in particular, because stuff arises and the prep process can be quite long. So if you take a car in, it might need a wheel refurb, it might need a touch up here, it might need a new windscreen or something like that. And it can be, you know, we sometimes have cars here for like a month before we put them for sale.
Yeah.
So actually inquiring, so we get a lot of inquiries from people that are looking for particular stuff and we sell them before we even get to advertising. It happens a lot.
Who's the best salesperson you've ever seen in your life and why?
My dad is up there. I mean,
let's say your dad's name and give him some marketing.
So my dad, Paul Jaconelli, he is, for me, the ultimate salesman. He is the
GOAT, is he?
Yeah, he is the GOAT. He can sell ice to the Eskimos. He has a natural gift of the gab. And he won't even know what he's selling a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Is he old school?
He is old school. You know, I'm quite different in the way that I want to know everything about the car. I want to know all my facts are right, and I'll give like a truthful, honest opinion. And I'll talk customers out of deals quite often, and then I realise I've talked them out of it. But long term, they kind of think, oh, actually I can trust this guy because he's not selling. Whereas my dad is just like bang, 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 can bamboozle people, and before they know it, they're walking out the door with a 500 grand car. He's brilliant.
Do you know much about the Hartley family?
Yes.
Yeah. So Carl's become a friend of mine since I interviewed him on the podcast. Would you regard them as competition?
They're probably one of the closest dealerships to what we do in terms of how we operate. They're a family business like us, father and son, and they've got a great business. They are similar to us in ways, but we have our own way of doing things. They have their own way of doing things. We have different clients, some crossover, but look, I respect them a lot. I think they've got a great business and a name that's very well known. But we do things our own way, and we don't tread on each other's toes very much at all. Would
you see yourself as a competitive kind of person? Like, do you like competition? Does it inspire you, or not?
It does inspire me. I don't. Yeah, one of my drives and motivation is to be the best, dealership. It's not to make the most amount of money. It's all about having the best operation, having the best premises, it's more about the client and their perception. But yeah, in terms of sort of, do other dealers kind of get under my skin? No, they don't. I think this market is big enough for lots of different players, and we'll have our little niche, and they'll have their own little niche. But yeah, on a daily basis, there's cars that you really want. You really don't want to lose them, and sometimes you do, obviously, and it ends up on their Hartley's site or someone else's site, and you're like, damn, lost that one, but we'll get the next one.
Yeah. So I've got a Ferrari Testarossa. If I gave that to you, what do you think? It's about 15,000 miles. What could you give to me for that?
My knowledge of all the cars, as I said.
Every time I go to cars, I end up buying a car. And I said to myself,
well,
why don't I come back and sell one this time?
I'd rather buy the RSQ8, I think.
Yeah.
You know what, as I said, my knowledge on older cars is not great. I would assume, roughly, that car must be 125 grand? Is it something like that? We don't really deal in them, so I'm not kind of like actively buying them or underwriting them, so I don't know. I could be wrong, but it seems like a 125 grand car to me, maybe 150.
Okay. Harry asked me, Harry's our producer, he said, you need to ask Tom to rate your cars.
Okay.
So I'm going to do it. So just out of 10, so Lamborghini Aventador, 2015, 15,000 miles, grey. Rate that out of 10.
It's got to be a solid 8.
Right.
I mean, I love the Aventador. I'm a big Lamborghini fan as well. So, I think that car has got so much presence. It's I guess, if I had to rate it, to get the 10, it'd want to be 500 miles.
Yeah.
And maybe not grey. I don't know. I'd prefer it black or maybe orange or something.
Do you not think, though, that these oranges and greens and yellows, a Lamborghini Aventador is already enough of a statement?
Yeah, I get that. I get the appeal of a grey one, for sure. I personally would probably have a black one, but... So, to get the 10...
Yeah. All right, I'll take an 8.
Yeah.
1989 911 Turbo. With the...
What's that? Is that the 993?
Yeah, I think it's 993. It's done 80,000 miles. It's the what do they call it? Guards Red.
Guards Red, yeah.
Is it the Fuchs? Is that how they call it? The
alloys? The Fuchs alloys, yeah.
Yeah, how'd you rate that?
Yeah, I mean, without seeing it's hard. I mean, it's got to be a 7. I mean, 80,000 miles is quite high. I guess maybe it's a 6.
Oh,
but,
wow.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's good.
Maybe if I saw it, it would go up. But on the surface.
Right, 5,000 miles, Air Latam 3. I think it's 3.5, is it? Mm-hmm. How do you rate that out of 10?
For fun, that's got to be a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know the full spec, but they are the most amount of fun you can have in a car, I think, for that
Yeah.
for that money. You know, we've got our track day in a couple of weeks, and we're desperate to take the aerial
Yeah.
we've got over there.
There's nothing
'cause it's-
like
yeah,
them on the track.
I know.
Yeah.
Although someone did actually put one in a barrier one of our track days. Oh no, it was a Caterham. That was a Caterham.
To spin them is so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need
that's
the
the thing.
runoff areas on the track, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, Goodwood is can be a bit hairy.
All right, so yesterday I bought my wife an RS Q8, paid 111 for it, 5,000 miles. Rate that.
Yeah, I think RS Q8 is a great SUV, and especially if you want something a little bit more understated, I think it's a 10. It's the best car that's, you know it's based, well, the Lamborghini Urus is based on it. That's what my dad's wife drives. She absolutely loves it. So yeah, that I think is one of the best SUVs you can buy for 100 grand-ish.
Yeah, okay. Aston Martin DBS, 145 grand, 20,000 miles.
I mean, if I was offered that car to buy, yeah, I'd probably be rating it a 5 on the colour. But then again,
But that's why it's so cheap, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you bought it at the right money, then it becomes a 10.
Yeah.
But in terms of how easy that car is to sell compared to a dark grey one,
Yeah.
I'd
I mean,
always rather buy a dark grey one.
it looked like you're paying 155, maybe even 160 in a Aston dealer for a similar car.
It's all about the supply and the demand, and yeah, as much as most people want a grey one, everyone wants a grey one, and there's 19 grey ones for sale.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of horses for courses, really.
Yeah. So we'll do a quick fire round on the show. Can you mix family and business?
You certainly can, because I'm doing it. It's got its challenges.
Like?
Me and my dad work pretty well together because we're quite different. He's a bit more sort of manic. I'm a little bit more laid back, and it's so we don't clash that much. But there are going to be times, and he, to be fair, has taken quite a lot of a step back in the business. So he trusts me. He allows me to put my own, print on things. So very rarely it becomes an issue. But I can imagine if we were both here 100% of the time, it would be much more difficult.
But it can be done.
It definitely can be done. Yeah. And I think when you're...
Because a lot of people say you shouldn't mix family and business, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think it, being a family member of this business, you're more driven by it. I'm not, I came into the business with I didn't own a share of it, but I was hugely driven because it was my family business. And I don't think...
So you want to prove yourself even more?
Yeah, you want to prove yourself, you want to help. When I first
you
started
don't want people
here,
to say, "Oh, well, it's just."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've got to prove yourself not
Yeah.
just to my dad. You had to prove yourself to the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
Even the clients.
Yeah.
And you have to build your own reputation. And it takes some years at the beginning. Yeah, you do just get sort of, oh yeah, that's the son of the owner.
Yeah.
But you build respect and you build momentum in your role, and eventually you get the respect, and you get, especially from my dad, I think he's been able to take a step back on the basis that he's seen what I've brought to the table.
Yeah. What's the most crazy Part X you can remember you've ever had, either way, where maybe someone wanted to trade in a VW Golf for a Bugatti, or a Bugatti for a VW Golf?
I mean, we get people looking to part exchange lawnmowers for Bugattis.
Really?
But they're obviously time wasters.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the Bugattis out of any of them
So you get people taking the piss. You get the Bart Simpson type calls.
Yeah, you get a lot of that, and Bugatti seems to attract them more than anything. So you get all sorts of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
The genuine ones, I don't know. You get some really weird, like customized cars, and you get cars that are a million miles away. That it's like a normal. Like I've got a Ford Focus, but I'm in Indonesia. Can I part exit for, a BMW M4 or something? We're just like, really, like, can we really be asked to do? Like, that deal sounds so complicated.
Yeah.
And surely you can buy one in Indonesia.
Yeah.
No? But yeah, so there's a lot of poor quality inquiries, we'll say. But yeah, we always want to take stuff that we can sell again ourselves.
Yeah. Can money buy happiness?
I think it can, but it's, it depends totally on the person. You know, it can't. If you're unhappy in life, money's probably not going to make you happy. But I think if you're happy in life, money can make you more happy. You know,
Does sometimes looking at these cars give you a nice little tickle, a nice little buzz, like a childhood dream come true almost?
I mean, the product here is amazing. So when you think of all the different places you could work in life, yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I'd rather be surrounded by. So in that respect, I'm happy working here because I think the product is next level. If I made $1 million tomorrow or I made 100 grand tomorrow, would that make much effect on my happiness? For like a minute, probably. I think it's about finding happiness within yourself before money becomes part of the equation.
What's your biggest mistake?
There's nothing that's really springs to mind that I've been like, oh my God, do I remember when I made that huge up? There's lots of little ones. For me, it's all about not making the same mistake twice.
What about the biggest car mistake, the worst trade, or?
Biggest car mistake?
Did you have to go groveling to Dad ever because you're like, Dad, I just lost 50?
I mean, one yesterday actually. I bought an M4 CSL about 5 months ago now. We'd actually sold 3, and then I was like, right, I'm going to buy another one. Gave 10 grand over list for it. We just sold it for 20 grand under list, I think. So that was a 30 grand loss or something like that. So that was pretty painful. But you take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be, and we always say, put it down to experience.
Yeah. Biggest regret?
I mean, sometimes I regret not coming into the business before, because I went to university, I travelled quite a bit, and I kind of didn't really have my business head on until I was probably 25-ish. So I sometimes regret going to uni. I feel like I could be further along in life. I could have more relationships. I could have better knowledge. But then I look back, I did have a lot of fun. So I'm kind of like, I made great friends. I saw the world. So it's not really a regret. But in terms of my business and my career, that is probably, I could have got into it a lot earlier and I'd probably be further ahead.
Most brutal life lesson?
I don't know if I've had any brutal life lessons, but you know, there's life lessons everywhere around me. You know, I've learned so much from being here. You know, learning how to deal with people, staff. You know, there's people that have left that I really didn't want to leave here, and I learn how, going forward, you know, to treat your staff, to grow your staff, and see things from their perspective. You know, and it's not all work. It has to be, you know, they're a person just like myself, and they need to be constantly encouraged and constantly, you know, the growth of a person, I think, is what I've learned is imperative to keep great staff.
What are you, A, most excited about, and B, most scared of for the future?
I'm definitely scared of AI.
Oh, we were just talking about that. I watched this documentary on AI robots, and oh my God.
It's
like,
terrifying.
We are this close. I mean, sorry I jumped in, this is your question, but we are this close to giving autonomy to AI, i.e. they can make the kill decision.
Yeah,
in war.
And
surely,
I think I might have seen that documentary.
Is that not Pandora's box?
Yeah.
Like, the genie's out of the bottle, that's it.
Yeah, they're going to be ahead of us as a race.
And why we would be inferior? Why would we be necessary? We would just be a consumption good, like the Matrix.
Yeah, they could just end us instantly.
Just use us for our
It's
resources.
pretty scary, and it's, you know, it needs to be managed massively by, I don't know, the government, the techies. You know,
it seems the techies involved don't take responsibility. They're like, well, our job is to just do the tech.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few movies, isn't there, where they sort of take over, and it's becoming more and more possible.
We're predicting our own annihilation.
Yeah. And the other thing that was a bit scary was, I think I listened to a podcast with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan where they talked about these microchips where they can implant microchips which can affect your emotions and affect your abilities, and that's not too far out either. And that's kind of scary because it's going to alter genetics and alter perception so much that you won't know what's real and what's not anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a bit scary.
Yeah. Okay, so what's exciting?
What's exciting? I don't know, life in general. It's I'm a fairly new dad, so building my family is massively exciting to me. In terms of this business and this industry, there's only so much I think in this business I want to grow. I think it's now we've become a size where I don't really want to get any bigger. Just want to get better. It's already quite a lot having 100 cars in stock compared to 50 what we used to have. But I'm excited. I'm excited for what comes next. I mean, I don't know what happens next, but it's just the endless sort of rat race of just making things happen and keep building momentum and just becoming a better operator.
So final question, this show is called Disruptors. What does the word disruptive mean to you?
The word disruptors, I guess it's someone or something that comes into an industry and does something different, which forces the industry to change and to do things differently. If you can come into this industry and show there's a better way of doing things and everyone else starts doing it, you've disrupted the industry.
And where should we follow Romans International? Where do you want people to... do you do social yourself?
I do a lot of the social myself, yeah. I kind of... That was one of the first things I did when I started was build our social presence. And Instagram's probably our biggest, at Romans International. We're quite active on Twitter, at Romans Cars. We've got Facebook, we've got TikTok, we've got LinkedIn. But YouTube is a big one for us. I do a lot of videos where I present and give quite a lot of information across, which a lot of the clients like. I need to do more videos, it's just finding the time. But yeah, YouTube's a good one to find us for sure.
Well, it's been amazing to be sat in the middle of 100 hunks of sexy metal, Tom. So thanks for taking time out of your day to have us.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Now, I've been on a mission for 17 years to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. If, like me, you'd like to make, manage and multiply more money, I recommend that you join my digital financial freedom platform. It's really easy to join. You just type in rob.team. There you're going to learn my 4 M's of making, managing, maintaining and multiplying more money. And the even better news is there's no risk to you because it costs less than 20 pence a day to join. You can cancel anytime. Join right now. I'll also give you my 12-week Money Mastermind University completely for free. It exposes the banking system and teaches you how to play them at their own game. If you join rob.team right now, you get that completely for free. Just type in rob.team. We'll see you inside with the 10,000 other members in rob.team.